Good morning, friends. I bring you greetings from your 121 sibling congregations across Mission Presbytery here in the southern fifth of Texas. You need to know that my favorite snack is Cheez-Its, and I do like white chocolate. Okay. Our presbytery goes all the way from Brownsville in the south up to Copperas Cove, just north of y'all. We go west to Del Rio and Laredo, and we go east to El Campo and Palacios and Collegeport. Here in that area, we are about 19,000 Presbyterians strong, and they all said to tell you, hey, this morning. I have asked permission to do this, but when I go around and visit congregations, I like to take your picture, and I like to see you waving. Where are my Zoom people? Where can I look at them? Oh, right there. Okay, I'm going to get y'all in the picture too. But I'd like for y'all to wave to your friends at home, and these will be posted this afternoon. I'm not expecting a call, I promise. But these will be posted this afternoon on the Presbytery Facebook page. So I'll give you a reason to come find your picture, okay? All right, I got to do y'all in two parts, I think. Okay, so y'all first. Everybody smile. And I mean wave, like wave big to your friends at home. Ready, wave. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Okay, and y'all and Zoom, the folks at home, right, wave big. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you. I'm putting it away now. Y'all have been active in Mission Presbytery in different ways, and you're always generous with your giving to us. Thank you for all the ways that you support Mission Presbytery. As we always say, we're better together. I want you to know that last year, indeed, in the Round Rock tornado, money from the One Great Hour of Sharing went from Presbyterian Disaster Assistance to support the folks at Grace Round Rock. They were able to buy hundreds of dollars of HEB gift cards and give to families who needed to get immediate help. And then there was lots of volunteer help. So this is the only offering that funds Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. So please give generously. We really appreciate it. Let us now turn together to our gospel reading for today, which is in Matthew, the 22nd chapter, beginning with verse 34. Listen again for God's word. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, that being Jesus, of course, they gathered together, and one of them, an expert in the law, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the laws and the prophets. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, do we keep going? No, that's it, right? Okay. I'm reading with y'all instead of the book. Okay, sorry about that. My friend Craig Satterley is the king of transitions. When I was working with him on my Doctor of Ministry degree, he was doing the final work on a book of his called When God Speaks Through Change. That would be a good book for y'all to read, by the way. He has done a lot of research in the area of helping pastors and congregations navigate the choppy waters of transition, which he would argue is just about every day. He says that there are 3 parts to every transition, but it kind of goes backward to what we might think. The first part of a transition is the ending. That's the time when something has happened, when you know that you can't go home again. There's been a death, or there's been an accident, or someone has announced that she is moving to North Carolina with her husband, or something has happened to the building, for example. The very first part of a transition is that event, which is a clear demarcation between what is and what used to be. So the beginning of a major change usually involves the grief that's associated with whatever end is taking place. And so if you start with the end, you probably think that we end with the beginning. And that's exactly how it follows. Whatever the new start is, the arrival of the new pastor, the dedication of the new building, whatever, that is the mark that ends the transition. If you were to sit Craig Satterley down this morning in front of the book of Deuteronomy, he might label today's Old Testament reading as a pretty major transition. The death of Moses is, of course, the beginning of it. No question. But does the transition end with the passing of the mantle to Joshua? Well, if so, that might be one of the shortest transitions in history. Let's leave the end of that transition to be settled in another sermon. But for today, the death of Moses leaves us squarely in the middle of what Satterley calls the middle, the liminal phase. Liminal is that scary, messy, nigh unto gushy phase of transition when the old is gone, but the new is not yet known. It's everything that happens in between the beginning of the change and the conclusion of it. The word liminal comes from a Latin word which means threshold, like the doorframe, either here or at your house. Imagine that you're standing at the threshold of someone's home. You're not yet inside the house, but you're not on the sidewalk anymore either. As opposed to a transition which can happen in the blink of an eye, or a new beginning which can become evident just like that, this liminal in-between time can last for months or maybe even years. I don't want to tell you all that, but I have to, okay? Old structures are gone. The new ones are not yet in place, and so the liminal time is a time to experiment, to try new ways of being, and to test out a new identity. You know, as lovely as all that sounds, I hate the liminal part. I like to know where we're going. And if I have to choose between remembering the past and not knowing it all, well, remembering wins every time. Memory is one of God's richest gifts to us. It's one of those things that makes us human. Having a memory means that it only takes one burn for us to learn how to keep ourselves from hurting ourselves the next time. Memory is what helps us find our way to and from home every day. Our memories are short when we are children, but they are the companion of our old age. And one of the best things about memory is that I can selectively shape it however I want. I can make that old boyfriend and the rotten relationship that went with him seem not nearly so bad. I can conjure up an idyllic childhood, and I can invent parents who were like June and Ward Cleaver. And I can, in the words of Willie Nelson, the prophet, remember the good times. They're smaller in number and easier to recall. So if I got to do things the way that I want to do them, I would move straight from that transition right into the new beginning and avoid all that messy experimental stuff in between. But that's not how I get to do it. And unfortunately, that's not the way that we get to do them in Mission Presbytery or at Round Rock Pres either. You and I find ourselves in that liminal time today, don't we? While we rejoice that Kim has not died, she has ridden off into the sunset. Right now, we think of her as the best leader we ever had. Wonderful, wise, great sense of humor, always ready with the right answer, with what nerves of steel and a heart of gold. Well, if we're honest with ourselves, we have to admit that while she was indeed all those things, she probably wasn't that way 100% of the time. But we use that gift of selective memory to edit out the parts that were less than perfect so that we can remember the good times. Would that we could move from our fond memories of Kim and how great life was when she was with us, right through to the start of the new pastor who will pick up exactly where Kim left off with the same level of strength and wisdom. Well, my friends, I wish I could promise that to you, but because I care about you, I won't. You and I are in that liminal time between Kim's departure and the next pastor's arrival. As great as living in the past might feel, we cannot live in the past. We cannot get back to normal because there is no normal anymore. This is the time when you and I are going to have to find our way together to try some new things, to keep some of the old things and ditch the rest, and all the while trust that God is going to see us through. But as you know, that's easier said than done, right? How do we do that? Which way is forward? Well, here's the key. We can only move forward by remembering. I know this is all backward sounding, but it's true. The way forward requires not being locked hopelessly in the past, but remembering only these two things: who is in charge and what we are called to do. So who is in charge? Certainly not Kim, probably not any of you, and I can guarantee you it's not me. The one in charge is the subject of the 90th Psalm, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. The one in charge is the God who teaches us to number our days, to know the brevity of life so that we can live with that wisdom that God gave us. Friends, God is in charge. God is in charge. 4 words. We can remember those 4 words every time we are tempted to worship the false idol of a past or a future of our own creating. And once we know deep down in our bones who we really are and who it is that really is in charge, we will automatically know what we're supposed to do. And that is to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. On those 2 commandments, Jesus said, hang everything, the law and the prophets. Friends, our confessions tell us that our reason for being is to glorify God and enjoy God forever. That is exactly the way and the only way that we can get ourselves through the threshold and cross over from the past into God's future. If we're going to make a healthy transition, we cannot long for something that cannot be. We cannot design a future with only ourselves in mind. What we can do is to love God, which means to both listen to and to do what God requires. And we can love our neighbors, the one who is here with us right now, the ones who are going to receive the food offerings that you're bringing, the ones who need the grace of God almost as much as we do. Focusing on what is not only really important, but on what is reality, will get us through these uncertain times and land us squarely in the place where God is calling us. Bless you. There's one more thing I have not told you yet, the most important thing, actually. My friend Craig Satterley says that transitions are not neat. One does not end before another one begins. There are all kinds of transitions going on in our lives all the time, overlapping each other and crashing into each other and messing each other up. That's the bad news. But the good news is the same. The way through this transition together as a congregation is as well as those myriad transitions going on throughout life and all time, affecting you and me, is the same each time. In this transition or that, in every circumstance of life, cling to the knowledge that God is in charge and count that the good news of the gospel. And then take the next step in front of you to love neighbor as self, and then put one foot in front of the other and repeat as often as necessary, a day at a time, an hour at a time, a minute at a time, if that's what you need. The God who is in charge specializes in making a way where there is no way. But in order to see that, we have to move out of the past and into the future that God has already prepared for us. Beloveds, the promised land is waiting. Let's get busy and head that way. Amen.